WVOX. From Westchester and now all over the world.
1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for Westchester Eye on the Radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and our Dina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome, everybody, to Westchester Eye on the Radio. I'm Peter Moses with my co-host, Ardina Stewart. Jeez.
No tea.
And John Sharan. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. Doing great.
I'm enjoying San Diego weather.
Yeah, I guess it is San Diego weather. Did any of you watch the Gotti specials on A&E last night? 4 hours of interviews with John Gotti Jr., his brother Peter, his sister, who looks like she was run over by several trucks, Angel Gotti, and some other people.
Nah, covered Gotti enough during the Gotti trials.
Murray Weiss was the news person expert. You know Murray.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was watching the Subway Series.
No, I couldn't watch anymore after the Mets were so terrible the first two games. We have a guest on today.
Yes.
In studio.
And he has a name that sounds like it's some Russian nobility, but he's originally from Ukraine. He is the general manager of Limebike, which we're going to find out exactly what that means. He's the general manager for the tri-state area. His name is Gil Kazamirov. And Gil...
Kazamirov.
I'm sorry. I'm slightly dyslexic. Kazamirov. I wrote it down right and I pronounced it wrong. I'm so stupid. Anyway, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for
What the
having
heck
me.
is a Limebike?
Good question. A Limebike is a bike that you can access using your smartphone. So once you have our app, you open it, you see where the bikes are, where the closest one to you is, you come up to it, you scan it, unlock, ride to where you need to go, and then as soon as you get there, dinner, work, wherever it is, you park it responsibly and you go on with your day.
There are a million questions about Limebike because Limebike is all over America. Well, apparently, there are 35,000 Limebikes in circulation in 60 cities across the country, and this has all been done in the space of, I think, a little over a year, which is pretty impressive.
Are you guys larger, smaller than City Bike?
It's a bit of an apples to oranges comparison. City Bikes is in a select few cities, major metropolitan areas. We have more vehicles deployed in the U.S., but we are in also very, very different markets like college towns and kind of in a lot of states.
Because City Bike has developed in some ways a very bad reputation.
Right. But we're also very different from City Bike in that City Bike depends on a dock-based system.
Right, and you guys are dockless, so it means you can leave the bike virtually anywhere, and this is, before we even get into that issue, which is lengthy, I just want to let the audience know that there, as much as there's been praise for Limebikes, there have also been problems with Limebikes about how they are dropped off because there is no central place to leave the bike, i.e. no docking station compared to the other bikes. You ride the bike from point A to point B, and you just leave the bike at point B, and either another rider picks it up, or if it's left there for an extended period of time, then someone from Limebike will come and pick that bike up and take it back to the bike warehouse, wherever that may be.
The only thing I know about Limebike is the Yonkers experiment, where the first day they had it, I don't know how many, but at least more than a couple of Limebikes ended up becoming submarine bikes in the Hudson River.
So that's something we see happen early on at the launch of new markets, and it's something that is often blown out of proportion to how many bikes we actually have in the fleet. So to give you some data for that, we've seen a little bit of vandalism in the beginning, and by a little bit I mean around 10 bikes have been vandalized. We are building up a fleet of about 1,000 now. And that's in line with what we've seen across the country. Roughly 1% of our fleet has been subject to theft or vandalism.
What communities in Westchester are you operating in?
Right now we're in Yonkers and White Plains.
Okay, so we're going to.
And are you planning to expand?
We are planning to expand. We are working with the city of New York. We'd like to launch in the Bronx as part of their pilot. We're also looking at New Jersey. We just launched Plainfield and Keyport. So we're looking at a few places in the area.
And what do you guys charge for use of the bike?
It's cheap.
Yeah, so that's one of our, I think, strengths compared to traditional systems like City Bike. We charge $1 for 30 minutes. There, it doesn't. There are no penalties. You just for every half an hour you pay $1. So you take it for 2 hours, you pay $4.
Which is great in poor neighborhoods. I see a lot of it in Southwest Yonkers, where people don't have cars and people can't afford big-time hotsy-totsy bikes. So this is an ideal solution, but we're going to get to that more on the other side of the break. You're listening to Westchester Eye on the radio. We're going to talk about bikes.
We have a lot more questions for Gil.
A lot more questions. And you can call in.
About all this. Yeah, you can call in.
914-636-0110 if you want to bash them or stash them. You can call in about the bike.
I don't even know what that means. But if you want to discuss the Limebike, I also am going to ask him why did they pick the color lime, because it's an interesting fruit and it's an interesting color. So we're gonna find out all these answer to all these questions and more after this long Fox News and business news break. This is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the radio, our weekly discussion of issues relating to Westchester and the surrounding area. I'm John Sharan, along with Peter Moses and Ardina Seward, and today we have a special in-studio guest, Gil Kazamirov, the Limebike General Manager for the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area.
Not Kamerizov?
No.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes.
You sure?
Well, you tried that and it didn't seem to fly so well.
You have any brothers?
I have an older brother.
And you call yourselves the Brothers Kazamirov?
I see what you did there. We do not.
Kazamirov.
That's right. Okay. All right. Go ahead. Now, I wanted to ask you, I think I have the support of my two colleagues. I never have John's support, but I think I have
That's not true.
Support.
Some of the time you do.
At 20%. Limebike, what does it mean? Is it the fruit or the color? Or is it both?
Both.
What a cop-out. Jeez.
Sorry. Boring answer, I know. But it's true. We wanted to pick an emblem that's refreshing, that is associated with health and so on, but there's also a much simpler reason, which is green is very noticeable.
But why not green bike?
Because the green bike has a different connotation. That's an environmental connotation.
I'm asking him, not you.
No, that was a great answer. Thank you. Yeah. I think we also like the association of the lime with a bicycle tire. When you cut the lime in half.
The spokes.
Well, but the lemon would have worked too with that.
Yeah.
Lemon would have worked too.
Right. Lemon bike doesn't have the same ring.
Pomegranate's not the exact same thing. But
not the exact same ring to it.
Pomegranate bike. That sounds pretty interesting. So anyway, go ahead. Something to do with the environment also?
Yeah. One of our big tenets is that our program is environmentally sustainable. We have a fleet of not just pedal bikes. Pedal bikes is what we have in Yonkers and White Plains right now. But we also have electric bikes and electric scooters all over the country. And the idea is that we want to provide people with a way to get around their cities that's environmentally sustainable, that's healthy, that's convenient, and that's quite cheap.
Have you thought about bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger in there to ride one of your motorized bikes? And he could do the bad to the bone?
He wouldn't fit.
I haven't personally reached out to him.
Weren't you thinking about that? The possibilities?
If you have a connection.
Actually, no.
I want to ask you about the Limebike has managed to gain a waiver in terms of helmets. There's a lot of discussion about people seeing kids riding around without helmets. And my understanding is that if you are 14 or under, according to New York State law, cyclists have to wear helmets. Now, Lime has managed to get around that. Well, you see 10-year-old kids riding without helmets. Is that part of the Lime package with the city, or is that just people flaunting the law?
That's people flaunting the law. We're very clear that we strongly recommend people of all ages to wear helmets, and especially kids, where legislation provides for it, that they must wear helmets. We're very clear on that. It's obviously difficult to enforce, but we also give out free helmets at all of our events. And so and if people write in to request, we always provide them with helmets as well. So that's definitely a big part, and safety in general is a big part of our focus. Also, in terms of liability, if God forbid somebody has an accident with Limebike, what is Limebike under the insurance umbrella of the city that it services, or are you? We have our own insurance that covers up to a very high amount for any sort of instances like that.
What about investors? I know you started out with venture capitalists, and initially it was up to 70 million.
I think total 132 million.
Okay,
so far.
So you started out with 132 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have a business that is called eking.
By the way, Ardina has that in her account. You should have tapped her.
I wish.
She did very well when Cap Cities sold to Disney. She made millions.
Really?
They all did. They all made millions.
You should have gotten in on the last round.
All these ABC millionaires.
And so here's the question for people who want to invest in Limebike. You guys are burning through money now. You have these bikes all over the cities.
You mean
across the country.
they're peddling the money away?
Peddling through money. And the return is kind of comme ci, comme ça, although it's projected that anybody who invests is going to get the big bucks later. So
you mean you're in for a second windfall?
Yeah, what do you tell people who want to invest in Limebike? I mean, is Limebike the new Google?
Yeah. So.
Bad analogy. I don't know.
I think it's a bit extreme. I mean, you basically painted him into a corner. You realize that?
You're the new Harley Davidson.
I will answer the most important part of the question that you're going for, which is do the unit economics work? And the answer is yes. It depends, of course, on utilization of the bikes, making sure, or the scooters. So as long as we hit certain thresholds, which we have been surpassing in almost every market, of how many times a vehicle or a bike or scooter is used in a market, then it makes sense for us to continue operating there.
I have a question about the scooters and the other motorized vehicles. How do you stop an underage kid from renting that?
It depends on the market. We don't have any scooters in the tri-state area.
That wasn't the question.
Yeah, I'm getting.
So I'm asking you, what is the answer?
Yeah, so it's difficult, but it's doable, right? So there are all sorts of tools, like you can scan your driver's license in order to get permission to ride the scooters. At the same time, I have seen kids ride scooters. You can have a friend or a parent unlock it for them. So it's not always possible to enforce, but we're very clear on what the regulations are.
But then you have to deal with law enforcement. You have to deal with local governments, and some of them are going to be much more stringent than others.
But you also have to deal with that with a 10-year-old getting behind the wheel of a car. And it's not the fault of the car manufacturer that the 10-year-old got behind the wheel of it.
I think that happens with much less frequently than with a motorbike that's sitting somewhere on a city street and some kid has.
But just over the weekend, we saw that horrible accident that killed 3 teenagers with an underage driver.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just thinking that it's having a kid get behind the wheel of a car. For the most part, you still have to have a key. I mean, I know there's keyless starts, but. And it's a point. I just don't know if it's an apples and oranges point.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you have to have a credit card, you have to have a bank account. I think it's tough to have that as a 10-year-old.
Well, they can get it
on the Upper East Side, Upper West Side. You have no idea what they do in New York, and in the Bronx, and any other place in New York. They some parents give kids a lot of stuff.
I will say, I think it's by far the minority. I don't.
Okay, so we'll stick to that. There's an answer. You found an answer that I think works. Anyway, we're going to go back to to a commercial break now. And then on the other side of that commercial break, we're going to talk more about Limebikes. And I'll be honest with you, I think they were a pretty good idea. And Ardina, I think you do too. John, you need to weigh in more after the break. This is WVOX. This is Westchester Eye on the radio. We are with you until 4 o'clock, and then you're without us for an entire week. So take advantage and call in if you want to ask any questions or make any comments. We will be right back.
Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
We are back. We are here. All four of us. This is Westchester Eye on the radio. I am Ardina Seward with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and our special guest, Gil Kazamirov. And he is...
And he does have a brother.
And he does have a brother. Okay. So, according to Peter...
But no book was written about
According to Peter, he has a brother. We don't know it for sure. But he has some bikes.
He told us he had a brother.
He has a brother who happens to ride Lime bikes. And that's why... We are here in the studio today.
You're not worried about being mistaken for Lyme disease? Did anyone ever bring that up that you chose an unfortunate word?
A homonym.
That hasn't been an angle I've heard of, but
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to New York City, the kinds of questions you'll be asked by the press are ones you don't anticipate. This is not Boulder, Colorado.
Uh-huh. So you're saying that's one I should prep for?
Well, one's a bike, one's a bug. Two different things.
Got it.
So, there are skeptics who have said this is a wild conspiracy theory that Limebike is really, since it's not generating a lot of money now, that Limebike is a data collecting service for transportation, data in terms of analyzing people's transportation habits. Then that Limebike would take that information in the future and make that into another business.
Yeah. So I won't comment on conspiracy theories, but I will say that a part of that is true, which is that we do collect data, but it's anonymized, and there is no way to trace it back to any sort of rider information. But the reason we collect that data is to be able to work with cities to make them understand their communities better, make them understand where riders go, what patterns do they ride, where do they tend to pick up the bikes, where do they tend to drop them off. And using that kind of information, which we share with them for free, they are able to make adjustments to their public transportation infrastructure. So like changing bus routes, for example, or deciding on where to invest into, highway improvements and so forth. And so that part of it is true. Obviously, I won't comment on our financials, and definitely not on that theory. But I think that's a very exciting application of Limebike, and that's why I think a lot of cities want to have us.
But okay, so speaking in terms of a technical issue of Limebike, you have GPS on those bikes. Now,
how easy is it for someone to remove that?
Well, but that's the second part of the question. But how easy is it to trace that person? Let's think of a hypothetical situation. Somebody's involved in a robbery, and they happen to commit that robbery on a Limebike. Cute, but they happen to commit that robbery on a Limebike, and now the cops are investigating. Mm-hmm. Would Limebike then surrender the GPS information to the police?
Yeah, I don't think we've had a similar case. My guess is we would work, or not, I know what we would do. We would work very closely with law enforcement agencies, and we would help support their investigation, however.
Have you had these bikes in any cities or municipalities where it just didn't work and you had to close up shop?
None. So every city we have launched, all 60 markets, we still are in operation in, and no one has asked us to leave ever.
Are you in Connecticut at all?
We are in Connecticut. We just launched in Hartford.
Hartford.
Yeah.
Hartford.
That's the one. But I also want to get to your.
You should go see the yard. The what do they call the Hartford yard goats? Yeah,
of course. I haven't seen them yet, but I have a T-shirt.
I want a hat. I want to get a hat.
So I want to get to your theft question because it's a very relevant one and it's one that is very often asked. What we've seen is And it's a natural question, right? You have a bike that's just left out in the street on the sidewalk.
He's doing the same thing as the guy last week. He's judging our questions.
It's a great question also because you don't have a docking station which locks the bike in.
That's right. Exactly.
So what's to prevent somebody from just picking up and saying, see ya, I'm going from point A to point B?
Yep.
Yeah, what is?
Cool. So we have a European-style lock on the back wheel which locks it to itself. Every time you end a ride, the bike locks. And it's possible to move, but every bike is equipped with 3G and GPS, so we know exactly where it is. But not only that, the parts are proprietary. So even if you want to steal it, there's not a ton that you can do with it. You can't sell it for the parts. We know where it is. But I think the more important part is, and what we've seen in our more mature markets, people realize that this is a thing for the community. This is a thing that's actually useful for them. And as soon as people take ownership over the program and feel like this is something that's for them, we see a continued decline in any sort of theft or vandalism. And we've already started seeing that in Yonkers. And not only that, but also we've seen the utilization, the usage we've seen in Yonkers has
1,000 rides.
Staggering.
You had 1,000 hits.
And how many bikes do you have in Yonkers?
So we launched on May 21st. So it's been 3 weeks to the day. And we've seen about 1,000 rides per day. And
how many bikes?
Oh, and we have about 750 out right now, I think. Mm-hmm. So we're building out to 1,000.
One of my questions is that when you're in a city or anywhere else, there are little pebbles in the road, there are curbs, and bikes get damaged. Even well-made bikes get damaged pretty easily. As a matter of fact, I think the more well-made bikes probably get the worst wear because they're built that way.
Right. Mm-hmm.
How often do you bring these bikes in to service them, to do preventative maintenance?
Yeah, good question. I mean, we have a maintenance team on the ground, and they go around almost 24/7 collecting bikes that are on maintenance mode, fixing them, and then redeploying them. And we know they're on maintenance mode either because of sensors that are inbuilt or because riders report saying, oh, the pedal doesn't work here or the brakes don't work there.
Just like the support teams in the Tour de France.
Identical. Yeah.
But then how cost effective is that? I mean, if you have a bike, I don't know how much it costs to manufacture that bike, but if you have that bike which is down, combined with the cost of the mechanics, you're losing revenue on that bike. So how does that compute?
Yeah. The good news is that most fixes are quite easy and quick. So in fact, most of them, we don't even have to bring the bikes back into the warehouse. We can fix them on the spot. Our maintenance team has all the tools in the vans. They fix them and then they redeploy them immediately. The bigger things we have to bring them back and fix, but even those are relatively quick.
What's going to happen in the wintertime? Now it's great because everybody's out there biking. The weather's fabulous. The weather's fantastic. But come, I would say, the latter part of October, early November, you're going to get into snow season. So then what happens to your bikes then?
Yeah. What we've seen is people don't stop riding them, and almost no matter the weather. So, I'm a city bike user. I rode it through the winter months, pretty much as long as it's not a snowstorm. And we've seen similar things, in our DC market, which was a big market we had over winter. People ride less, yes, absolutely, but people still rely on it to get to work, to get to places.
Now you've got a fleet. You say you've got 750 in Yonkers, trying to build out to 1,000. Are these fixed gear bikes, or do you have multiple gears?
For Yonkers, we brought out the heavy artillery.
I was going to say, there's a lot of hills in Yonkers, so yeah.
We brought out the 8 gear, 8-speed.
Wow.
They're
so
great.
People may need to learn how to ride those.
Yes, but at the same time, it's quite intuitive. I mean, they have to know how to ride a bike, obviously, but the gears were built with public usage in mind. So they don't break very easily. They're very easy to switch, and they're quite functional.
Do you advertise much?
We don't advertise at all. And the reason for that is our bikes do a lot of the marketing for us. When people go out and see, here's an unlocked bike just standing, or a bike that looks unlocked that's standing in the street, they get curious about it. They approach, they download the app, and they learn themselves.
Who manufactures the bicycles?
Our manufacturer is the biggest manufacturer of bikes in China. They manufacture a third of the world's bikes.
What's the name of the company?
I don't remember. I should know this, but
they make all your bikes. It'd be a good thing to know.
Is that going to? I'm just curious. Since you manufacture in China, how is that going to affect your business model if the tariffs, if number 45 starts sticking tariffs to China? How is that going to work?
How would he be able to answer that?
I don't have an answer to that. It might impact our supply chain in some way. I'm 100% confident we'll figure it out.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about business on the other side of the break. We want to get into we want to talk about vandalism, and we also want to talk about how Limebike is being financed, because there's a big misconception.
And where they're going to go next in Westchester County, because our listeners, they're not available in New Rochelle. That's a city. Right. They're not available in New Rochelle. That's a city.
New Rochelle, I noticed the other day, did have a line of bike stands with the units. So it's a competitive market,
right? And we want to know more about where you're here. You're a marketing person in some ways as general manager. Anyway, this is Westchester Eye on the radio on WVOX and WVOX.com. We're going to be pedaling away for a couple of minutes to a break, and when we come back, we're going to learn more about Lime bikes than you ever wondered about. I hope, anyway. We'll be right back.
1360 WVOX. Let's return now to Westchester Eye on the radio with Peter Moses, John Sharan, and Ardina Seward on 1460 WVOX.
Welcome back to Westchester Eye on the Radio, our weekly discussion of issues relating to Westchester and the surrounding area. I'm John Sharan, along with Peter Moses and Ardina Seward, and our special in-studio guest right now is Gil Kazamirov, and Gil is the general manager for the tri-state area for Limebike, one of the revolutions, if you will, in personalized transportation in the United States, many areas. And they're operational now in Yonkers and in White Plains. And Gil, you say you started at the end of May in Yonkers. When did you begin in White Plains? And what other communities in Westchester are you looking to expand to?
We launched in White Plains about a week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going really well so far. We've been seeing very high adoption akin to Yonkers, very high bike utilization. So about 3 to 5 trips per bike per day, which, to give you a little bit of context, is way higher than the 1 to 2 trips per bike per day that we see in the rest of the country. So it's obvious people in Westchester love bikes.
Now, the usage of the bikes brings up an interesting question. Since the bikes can be left anywhere,
mm-hmm.
is there any sort of an incentive, financially or credit-wise, to bring the bike to a place where more people would be likely to pick it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are just, I think, at the beginning of figuring out a good, scalable way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Our first pass at it is by offering people who would take a bike that's in a non-popular place to a popular place, is to give them that ride for free.
Mm-hmm.
And that bike comes up as a free ride in their app. I think there are ways to do this even better, and that's the team in our headquarters, which is in San Mateo near San Francisco. They're working hard on thinking exactly how do we rebalance, because right now we have our maintenance team going around and moving the bikes themselves to areas of high demand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great idea, and it's something we got to keep working on.
There's a lot of misconceptions out there about how this program is being funded. I know that when it first started in Yonkers, there were cries of treason on behalf of on the part of the city, saying that the city spent all this money on Lime bikes when it should be going to the financial coffers where people need right now, since with the proposed layoffs. So, where does this money come from for this program?
The money comes from the rides. And what's cool about dock-free bike sharing is that we don't have to spend a ton of money on creating a dock-based infrastructure in a city that's very dense, in prime real estate locations. What that means is we really only have to pay for the bikes and the operation of maintaining them.
So no money. This is being totally financed by Limebike itself.
Not a cent comes to us from the city. This is a free service for the community, free in the sense that we're bringing it here. Obviously, it's $1 for half an hour to ride, but there is no need for any sort of subsidy, which is definitely the case with the vast majority of dock-based systems.
What about the issue of bikes clogging the pedestrian right-of-way? How do you handle that? Because I have seen photos of bikes being dropped off and they're taking up half the sidewalk where people have to walk. So how is there a remedy for that?
Yeah. So as I see it, it's really a learning curve. It's a new product. It's a new way for people to get around their cities. And what we do is we focus a lot on rider education through our website, in-app, and during events on how exactly and where to park bikes. But that's not the final kind of, that's not where it ends. The most important thing is that as people ride more and more, and as this becomes a more popular and pervasive thing through the community, people get a sense of responsibility. We've seen this in many markets. Seattle is one of our oldest markets. And we've seen that as time goes on, people start parking more responsibly. They make sure that bikes are not parked in private property. They're not in people's ways. But also to add to that, we have a hotline that anyone can call and submit a complaint on an illegally parked bike or a bike that's in people's way. And very shortly, very quickly after that, we dispatch someone from our maintenance team to go retrieve that bike and move it out of the way.
Now, you spoke about your team. Is Limebike hiring?
Yes. We are hiring in Westchester, and hopefully we'll hire wherever we expand in New York City.
Well, let's say, for example, in Yonkers, which is a community that really needs jobs. Yeah. If people want to apply to work at Limebike, what kind of skills do they need? Where do they apply? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Thank you for this. Is great. If you just go on our Limebike website, limebike.com, and click on the careers tab, you will see all of our openings across the nation. Some of the roles we're hiring for now are operations specialists. These are the people who are on the ground, who are responding to complaints, who are deploying and rebalancing our bikes. You have to be in good physical shape, but you also have to kind of be responsible, think strategically, like where does it make sense to deploy and sort of what route should I take and so on. We're also looking for mechanics, bike mechanics, people with experience in fixing anything like bikes. Doesn't have to be bikes immediately, but all sorts of roles like that. If you're interested, if someone's interested listening, please check out our website, limebike.com. I think it's /careers.
And back to the scooter issue. You were talking about expanding to, I believe, electric bikes. Now, would that be in other areas of the country, or would you consider that in Yonkers, which really needs it? Because remember, Yonkers is called the city of hills.
Yeah, we would love to bring them to Yonkers.
So is Lisbon in Rome.
In Rome, well, Yonkers is. Let me tell you, Yonkers
and Seattle.
Yonkers is definitely the city of hills. That's why a lot of people have four-wheel drive. Because man, when
you want to go on a tough hill, go to Yesler Way in Seattle.
Is that right?
It's like this. Yeah. They used to send logs down there from high up.
Oh, wow.
And they used to send them down Yesler Way. That's why
the awesome thing about electric bikes or electric assist bikes is that the steeper the hill, the more it helps you. So I think it would be an amazing solution for a city like Yonkers. I would love to bring them here. What's going on right now on the state level is Albany is looking at legislation to legalize e-assist bikes. If that passes, I really hope we can bring electric bikes to Yonkers. I will say the utilization we've seen has been on pedal bikes, so it's far surpassed. Everyone told us there's no way people in Yonkers will ride these bikes. It's too hilly. No one's going to ride them. But we've been really positively surprised and encouraged by how engaged people are with the bikes and how much they use them.
It would be marvelous for delivery services.
Yeah.
Where these poor guys have to ride these steep hills with pizza and Chinese food. Yeah. It's brutal. Yeah. And if they could have an electric, a motorized bike, It would be absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely.
So if people want to learn more about Limebike, how can they find out about Limebike?
Yeah, go to our website, limebike.com. But also, if there's a bike near you, I strongly encourage you to download the app and try it for yourself. I think it's a pretty magical experience. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but I thought so even before I joined. It's life changing, not in the sense that it's really fun, although it is. It's also incredibly convenient, and it makes it easier for people to get around their city, which is what I'm most excited about.
Well, that's really cool, and I wish you the greatest success.
Thank you.
Continued success, actually. Ardina, we do have a show for next week.
Yes, very interesting show. We're going from it's a terrible segue, but we're talking about bike roads. We're going to be talking to Freeway Rick, who's someone I have followed probably for the last 8 years. Fascinating guy.
8 years.
8 years. Freeway Rick has a story.
Does he have a last name?
Rick Ross. Rick Ross has a story and
Freeway
a half
Rick.
to tell. And
what?
Well, I'm only going to give you three. I'm only going to give you three clues. Rick Ross, crack cocaine, Oliver North. And
okay,
if you want
I have no idea what to do with those three things.
That's why we want people to tune in.
I know. There's a famous producer named Rick Ross, but this is not him.
He took Freeway Rick Ross's name. Fascinating.
Oh, he took Rick Ross's name?
Oh,
yes.
and Freeway Rick Ross sued him for it.
Wow.
That's right. You know.
I didn't know about that. Well, that's pretty interesting. Is he coming in studio?
He's calling in from L.A.
Oh, so we're not going to have to deal with any drug enforcement agents coming to the studio.
You just have to deal with his book, because he's written a book about his experience.
That's great. This is Westchester Eye on the radio, and we're going to be signing off in a few seconds. And, John, I hope the Mets win more than one game in the next 9 games.
From your